Have you ever pondered the magnitude of power that lies in your hands when you cast your vote? Voting, my friends, is not merely marking a paper or tapping a screen. It's the manifestation of our collective power, the power to shape our world, our country, our lives. Imagine a multitude of voices, each unique, each different, yet all converging into a harmonious chorus that echoes across the land. That, my dear listeners, is the symphony of democracy, a melody that each of us has the privilege to contribute to. Now let's delve a bit deeper. Democracy is a fascinating concept, isn't it? Born from the belief that all individuals have an equal right to influence the decisions that affect their lives, democracy is often visualized as a scale, a delicate balance of power. And what maintains this balance, you ask? It's the humble vote. Yes, your vote, my vote, our votes. Each vote, each voice, is a weight that tips the scale, a force that shapes the future. A single vote can be the difference between progress and stagnation, justice and inequality, peace and turmoil. It's a duty, a responsibility that we bear, not just for ourselves, but for our fellow citizens, for our children, for those yet to come. But it's not just a duty, it's a right, a fundamental right that our forebears fought for, struggled for, and even died for. A right that countless people around the world are still fighting for, a right that we, my dear listeners, are fortunate to have. So let's not belittle the power of our vote. Let's not take this right, this duty for granted. Let's not silence our voices. Let's vote, not just because we can, but because we must. Indeed, your vote is your voice, your weapon, your power. Cherish it, wield it wisely, and let it echo across the land. For in the grand symphony of democracy, every note, every voice, every vote counts. Did you know that the roots of voting date back to ancient times? Yes, indeed, the concept of democracy, the government of the people, by the people, for the people, was first conceived in the cradle of civilization, ancient Greece. Picture this, it's the 5th century BC, and we're in the heart of Athens. In the Athenian democracy, all citizens, albeit a limited group at the time, had the right to vote on new laws and public policies. They'd gather in an assembly, a vibrant melting pot of ideas and debates, where each man had the power to influence the course of his city-state. A single pebble or seaphos dropped into a pot could tip the scales of history. But this wasn't the only form of democracy in the ancient world. Let's journey westward, where the Roman Republic was blossoming. Here, voting wasn't just for laws, but for people. Citizens were divided into groups or centuries based on their wealth. Each century had one vote, and they'd cast their ballots to elect officials, like the ever-powerful consuls. This was a different flavor of democracy, one that we'd call a representative democracy today. From the vibrant assemblies of Athens to the stratified centuries of Rome, these ancient civilizations laid the groundwork for the democratic systems we see today. They taught us the power of a vote, the importance of having a say in the laws that govern us, and the value of representation. It's a testament to their lasting influence that we still use terms like democracy and republic to define our political systems. These ancient democracies were far from perfect, and they certainly weren't inclusive by today's standards. But they set in motion a wheel that has been turning ever since, shaping nations and societies across the globe. So, the next time you vote, remember that you are part of a tradition that stretches back thousands of years. Each time you mark that ballot, you're adding another link to this grand chain of democracy, echoing the voices of those ancient citizens and reaffirming the enduring power of the people. But how did we get to the voting system we have today in America? In the early days of the American Republic, the Founding Fathers had a vision, a dream of a nation governed by its citizens. Yet this vision was not fully realized, as the right to vote was initially limited to land-owning white men. This meant that a significant portion of the population, including women, African Americans, and those without property, were excluded from this fundamental democratic process. As the years rolled on, the struggle for voting rights took center stage. In the mid-19th century, the suffragettes, a group of steadfast and resilient women, advocated for gender equality in voting. Their tireless efforts led to the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920, granting women the right to vote. Around the same time, African Americans were fighting their own battle for voting rights. Despite the 15th Amendment, which theoretically granted them the right to vote after the Civil War, they faced significant barriers such as literacy tests, poll taxes, and outright intimidation. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that these discriminatory practices were outlawed. As we moved into the modern era, the voting process continued to evolve. The 26th Amendment, ratified in 1971, lowered the voting age to 18, acknowledging the voices of the nation's youth. Today, our voting system is more inclusive than ever, allowing citizens from all walks of life to have their say in the democratic process. Voting has transitioned from a privilege for the few to a right for the many. Yet it is not without its flaws, as debates over voter ID laws, gerrymandering, and the Electoral College continue to shape the landscape of American democracy. In the face of these challenges, it's essential to remember the struggles that brought us here and the progress we've made. Our voting system today is the result of centuries of struggle and progress. Each ballot cast is a testament to our democratic journey, a tribute to those who fought for this right, and a step towards an even more inclusive future. But how exactly do our votes get counted and translate into representation? Let's dive into the fascinating mechanics of voting. Firstly, it begins with us, the voters. On election day, we march down to our local polling stations, armed with nothing but our voice in the form of a ballot. We step into the voting booth where we mark our preferred candidate or issue. That piece of paper, my friends, is more than just ink and pulp. It's our voice, our choice, our say in the direction our country takes. Once the polls close, the counting begins. This process varies from place to place, but let's imagine a system where ballots are manually tallied. Each vote is carefully counted, each voice heard. It's a tedious process, but it's crucial in ensuring the accuracy and integrity of our elections. However, the story doesn't end there. In certain countries like the United States, the counting of votes isn't as straightforward. Here's where the Electoral College system comes into play. In this system, the candidate who receives the most votes in a state wins all of that state's electoral votes. This means that a candidate can win the popular vote, but still lose the election if they don't secure enough electoral votes. This might seem a bit confusing, but it's an essential part of the democratic process designed to ensure that every state's interests are represented, not just those with the highest populations. It's a balance of power, a dance between the individual and the collective, between the one and the many. So when you cast your vote, you're not just selecting a candidate. You're participating in a process that dates back centuries, a process that is the cornerstone of our democracy. It's about understanding the power of your voice and how it contributes to the larger conversation. Voting is not just about casting your vote, but understanding how it counts. So the next time you're at the polling station, remember, you're not just marking a ballot, you're shaping the future. So why should you vote? It's a question you've probably asked yourself at some point. Maybe you felt your single vote couldn't possibly make a difference in the grand scheme of things, or perhaps you were so disillusioned with the options that you decided not to choose at all. But let's delve a little deeper into the realms of democracy and consider the real power of your vote. Every vote is a declaration, a voice that echoes through the corridors of governance, shaping the direction of our society. It's like a tiny ripple that, combined with millions of others, can create a powerful wave, strong enough to sweep in change or maintain stability, depending on what the collective desires. When you cast your vote, you're not just selecting a name on a ballot. You're making a choice about the kind of future you want to see. You're deciding on the values, the policies, the leadership that you believe will best serve your community, your country, and ultimately, yourself. Now consider the alternative. What happens when you don't vote? The absence of your vote is not a silent protest, but rather a forfeiture of your voice. It's an empty seat at the table of democracy, a missed opportunity to influence the course of your future. When we don't vote, we let others decide for us, and they may not always share our perspectives or prioritize our needs. Remember, voting is the cornerstone of democracy, but it's not just about the here and now, it's about the future. our future. Every election is a chance to shape that future, to mold it in the image of our collective hopes and dreams. It's about leaving a legacy for the generations to come, a world that reflects our highest ideals and aspirations. Your vote is not just a right, but a responsibility to yourself, your fellow citizens, and your future. So when the time comes, step into that voting booth with pride, knowing that you're playing a crucial role in the democratic process, because your vote is your voice and your voice matters.